the very circumstances that we're experiencing now. That doesn't mean these are pleasant circumstances or easy circumstances, but that is the greater context for us being here. Of course, day to day, hour to hour, minute to minute, we are navigating the world and dealing with all the complexities of living in a changing world and all the difficulties of living in a physical reality. For beyond that, we're really spiritual beings. And for a spiritual being to come into a physical reality is pretty challenging, so different, so completely different from the reality to which we've come from and to which we will eventually return. That's why it takes so long for us to grow up, to be able to develop the mental skills and the physical skills of navigating a changing and uncertain world. Such a great contrast, as I said, to where we have come from. So the biggest aspect of this threshold of change is our emergence into this greater community of life. As a physical life, we don't need to talk about other dimensions here. What I'm talking about is bigger than anybody can possibly grasp. And nobody in the world, perhaps nobody in the universe, can grasp all of it, for it is so great and so huge. Our task is to understand where we are in this process of evolution from a higher and larger standpoint. If you're in the middle of it day to day, well, you see the weather and you see the news and you see yourself and you go through the motions of life. But to see the bigger context is something that begins to give you a larger framework for understanding yourself and why you are the way you are. Perhaps you're extraordinary in some ways. Perhaps you're different than other people. Perhaps you have thoughts and feelings that nobody around you has, that sets you apart, sometimes painfully. Perhaps you have a desire to understand life in the universe. Many people do, you know. And it's been with you since childhood. Perhaps you drew pictures of the stars, or pictures of planets, or pictures of spacecraft when you were a little child. However that's manifested for you, if it has, then that has something to do with your future and destiny. These are very early signs, and children don't understand what it means, and we have these signs too, and we often don't understand what they mean. But as we learn and grow up and become human beings, which is a very challenging task, we also get signs of a deeper nature or thread within us. So when I talk about life in the universe, the greater community, I'm not talking about our explorations into space. I'm talking about contact with those who are coming here and have come here already. Certainly recent footage from the Navy pilots has shown us these craft, finally for the first time, since this has been going on for about 80 years, behind the scenes, very well covered up, very secretive. But millions of people around the world have seen craft like this. Some have even had direct encounters. So what I'm talking about is not something that's really that new to us. It's just something we don't talk about, or something that people are afraid to share, or something that's happening behind the scenes but reveals itself in small ways, sometimes big ways, countless times. This is part of the dimension of our life that is out of the norm, but is so important that it holds some keys to understanding where we're going. What is our destiny as a human race? This greater community of life is not something we're going to go take over. It's not something it's not like the frontier that's waiting for us to explore and claim it for ourselves. It's something we're going to have to contend with, full of powerful technological forces and races very different from our own. So this is the evolutionary direction of our world. Eventually, all worlds where intelligent life has evolved will eventually emerge into this greater community of life through their own technological development or through intervention or visitation from races from beyond. It's unavoidable. And we're experiencing it now, increasingly, every day increasingly. So this is the evolutionary direction of our world, but it also has something to do with why you're here, perhaps. And I'm going to invite you to look into this for yourself, to see what your experience has been, and how this might affect you. Do this objectively with yourself. Don't just dismiss it or say it's not real, can't be. What do you mean it can't be? It's happening. And because it represents our destiny and it's happening now, it has everything to do with where the world is going now. What is being created, what is being destroyed. Why are wars fought? What's happening to the world physically? The decline of the natural world, the loss of world resources, the heating of our planet. The condition of the world has actually brought visitation and intervention here. Why? Because worlds like ours are so rare in the universe. Beautiful terrestrial planets with a grand diversity of life. A universe of barren worlds, my goodness. So certainly, when this begins to happen, and this happens perhaps often, when technological races begin to outstrip their world's resources, intervention happens. It's a sign. It's a sign to others in the universe to take note, for they may have an interest in this world as well. Not for us necessarily, but something that is so valuable as a resource that they would certainly intervene for their own interests. It's very important here to think that they're not here because they love us or think we're wonderful people or we have grand spiritual potentials. They're here for the environment. The environment. You know, this is really important because environment is the most important thing. Environment in our world seems to be way down the list of priorities for most people. Maybe it's not even on their list. But it really is the most important thing. Because if that environment changes, everything changes. The world is now heating with every passing day. It creates wild weather, sometimes more extremely cold, sometimes more extremely hot, but overall hotter. It's changing people's lives. It's changing the dynamics of our world. It's changing the stability of our world. It's also a sign for visitation intervention to take place. These two great events, which are going to shape the future of our world, are really connected to each other. If environment is the most important thing, and we're sitting on an environment of grand and great value, and we're destroying it, wouldn't that create visitation and intervention? If we're the wealthiest planet around, in terms of its biological diversity, mineral wealth, whatever, and we're destroying that, wouldn't that create visitation, intervention? So now our environment is changing on a degree never seen in the time of human history. Every degree that the planet warms will change the outcome for humanity, everywhere. Our ability to grow food, access to water, everything. So there's nothing really bigger than this in terms of our future and our security and our well-being and our stability, because if countries start fighting each other over fundamental resources, well, we're going to have a world at war, like in a big way. Not one grand war, but many wars. Wars over resources, water. What's more precious than water? See, this is why the world needs you. It doesn't need necessarily what you want to give, but it needs something in you that you have that probably has never been fully discovered. Maybe you have some clues, but you're not sure. Of course, nobody's sure at the beginning. Nobody has the big answer at the beginning, not in the things we're talking about. But there are signs of life within you, signs of greater potential. And they're coming from the world, you see. The world is telling you things. You need to survive in this new world reality. If you're living a little monocular life, assuming that everything is going to be there for you and be the same for you, your employment, the stability of your community, the climate, the seasons, everything is going to be as you are used to them being, then you're not going to adapt to this changing world environment. And the failure to adapt is very dangerous and costly. You're not keeping pace with where the world is going, because most people aren't even paying attention. They don't want to know. I don't want to know about that. Well, you need to know about that. You're here to know about that in a bigger sense. This deeper intelligence I'm talking about really represents the internal part of you, whereas your worldly self is something that's been created since you've been here. A few decades old, maybe several decades. That's it. And part of you is eternal and still connected to your source. Wow. So that eternal part of you is the guiding light here. Because this is your divine connection, and this is what is connected to the movement of the world. Otherwise, people just want to tune this out. I don't want to look at this. It's too big for me. I just want to do what I have to do. But that's not adaptation. So your personal mind is meant to take care of all the details, but you have a bigger mind to know where to go, who to be with, what not to be with, what to choose, what not to choose. It's fundamental, because you have a destiny here. The destiny isn't what you have right now. A destiny is someplace you're going to. And you don't just know the destiny, because you're not there yet. I mean, you could make a theory about it or create a picture of it, but it's never going to be like that in reality. A destiny is a journey. It's a journey you've got to take in life, and it's coming from inside of you. God has given you this power. God's not managing your life and affairs. God's not even guiding you. The God of a billion races and more in this galaxy and thousands of other galaxies? No. God's intelligent. Put the guiding intelligence within you. People say, is this intuition? Well, intuition comes from this deeper knowledge, but the deeper knowledge is even bigger than that. It's really carrying the real purpose and mission of your life. It's holding it for you until you're in a situation in life and in a state of mind where you can come to see what that is and to become responsible for it. See? The preparation has many stages for this. It's not just having the right ideas or believing in the right things. You can't give your life over to God, because God is giving your life back to you. I really feel for younger people who do not yet have a strong enough anchor being in the world, a strong enough position in the world, to feel the things that they're feeling and see the things they're seeing. And they're seeing their world break down, change right before their eyes. Their future is changing. Perhaps their prospects are diminishing. They see their world entering into greater levels of crisis. And you can understand why this would lead to tremendous fear and anxiety and self-doubt. And here again, the power of this knowledge is the redemptive force within you. God is not going to save you by what you believe in. God is going to save you by giving you this knowledge to follow so that you can fulfill your destiny in being in the world, whether you are a Christian, a Buddhist, a Muslim, or have no religion at all. I want to be very clear about that. This is not a belief situation. Actually, belief is pretty weak and can become very, very restraining or limiting to a person. I only believe in this. Well, you don't see everything else if you only believe in this. The beauty is God saves you from the inside out, not by what you believe in. No. And God saves you because what you have been given can guide your life, determining the really important things of your life. It's not going to tell you where to go this Friday. It's not going to tell you, what to choose, where you're shopping. It's going to set a direction, and it's going to support you in that direction. And you adjust your life accordingly. Otherwise, you're going to see what's coming over the horizon, and you're going to be so frightened, so anxious. You just want to go away. You go into denial. I'm not going to look at this. But you need to look at it. It's your life. It's changing. Nature can be unmerciful to the unprepared. And so when you're in a changing environment, adaptation and preparation then become important. Because otherwise, you're just going to hope things get better and things are going to go where they're going to go. And you never saw that, or you don't know what that means, and you're overtaken by it in the end. So instead of retreating and withdrawing, or thinking, I just got to protect what I have, I can't deal with this. You need to begin to look into things as objectively as you can. I know it's upsetting. I get upset. The war in Ukraine is upsetting me. Things upset me. Of course they do. You'd be numb if they didn't upset you. So allow that to happen. Some things are hard to look at, and you don't have answers, but you do have a direction. There's a gift you have for the world. It's very specific. It involves certain people. Probably you have never met them yet. Maybe you have, some of them. But you have to take a journey to get there. It's maybe not have anything to do with what you're doing now. It probably doesn't represent the thing you always thought you would be doing. But it's there. And it's there because it's needed in the world, and you're one of the people who can respond to that specific need. You're not going to solve the whole thing. Of course not. Nobody's going to solve the whole thing. No president, no leader. No. It's going to take a lot of people, increasingly, responding to changing circumstances and being constructive in their response. And this is what's being called for now. You know, I'm giving this teaching because the world is changing, and if people don't respond to that, this gets pretty hazardous and dangerous for everybody. So everybody has a stake in this. But the difference is, when you connect with this deeper intelligence, it is really about service in the world. It's not about you gathering wealth and hiding out somewhere. It's not about you becoming totally powerful that nobody can hurt you. It's about your service, why you have been sent. You've been sent to the world. You didn't just show up one day like, what am I doing here? You were sent. But this is at a deeper level within you. Your personality, your worldly conditioning may not say anything about this. Maybe you admire people who have a greater purpose and destiny in the world, but that's going to have to be a lot of people now. Otherwise, the harvest is plentiful and the laborers are few, in terms of the world needs many people and few show up. So what you're being given here is a means of surviving in a radically changing world and being of great service in that world, which is your heart's desire. You can't just be a locust upon the land and just devour everything in sight. I mean, you're going to run out of everything in the land, which is happening slowly but surely. The big changes are happening slowly but surely, so they don't arouse a lot of response. But they are the most important changes. The world is getting noisier and will get noisier. So you're going to have to withdraw into yourself and begin to preserve and build your inner life, because your inner life is something the world cannot really reach. It can reach you psychologically, it can reach you physically, it can reach you emotionally, but your inner life is something deeper and more sacred within you. And if you have too much of the world impressing itself upon you, you just will not be able to build this center within yourself, being grounded in this deeper part of you. And perhaps you've experienced intuition, and most people have to some degree. Well, that's coming out of this deeper part of you. But the deeper part of you is much bigger than that. But taking the steps to knowledge, which is something that I'm very much involved in, and that I want people to be involved in, is a process of regaining your fundamental core connection with the deeper intelligence within you, which holds the real purpose and direction of your life. You could pray to God for purpose and direction. Show me my purpose and direction, but it's already been put within you, waiting to be discovered. But it's not an idea. It's not like, I had an inspiration or I had an idea. It's something you have to move towards. It is a different experience. It is unique. It is not conditioned by your fears and your preferences and your obsessions. You kind of have to make a way for it, right? Clear the jungle out so you can see a pathway. And that pathway will open before you as you begin to take this journey.